Okay, good morning. This is the regular open meeting of the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission on November 25th, and it's 10 a.m. Good morning, everybody. We'll go ahead and get our meeting started with a roll call.
Commissioner Nyberg? Present. Commissioner Aguilar?
Present.
Commissioner O'Connell?
Here.
All commissioners are here and have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Okay, next we'll do the pledge and state pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Okay, so we have an agenda before us. Commissioners, do you have any proposed modifications to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and approve the agenda by voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so I guess we didn't have a motion there, but I think we're fine. So in terms of announcements, want to announce that or remind people about the seminar that we'll have next week on energy topics for attorneys who might want to get their CLEs or anybody else who's interested. So that'll be on December 1st and 2nd. And if you want to register for that, it's free. Just go to our website. Next, we will have a public comment hearing on December 4 about a rulemaking on inspection and supervision fees for telecom companies, and that's in docket number 2564. And we're going to have we have a hearing scheduled for December 9 in PNM's application for a CCN for 30 megawatts of battery energy storage. And that is docket number 2555. Of note, PNM recently filed a motion to vacate the hearing, and that motion is pending. So also want to announce that next year, for our open meeting schedule, we're going to start our open meetings on January 15 and then have bi-weekly meetings after that. So that's going to leave a gap between December 18 and January 15 where we won't have a meeting. So if we need to hold a meeting, we will in between that time. That's all I have for announcements. Commissioners, do you have any? No? General Counsel's office?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just add to your announcement about the change in the meeting schedule, and maybe people are used to this by now, but they should also keep an eye on where the meeting's going to be held because we're going to be kind of moving around in different places.
Okay, so that's all I have by way of announcements. So we'll move on to public comment, and I see some newer faces here, so I think we have some public comment. So we'll start with public comment in person, and then we'll check to see if we have any public commenters online. Is there anybody here who would like to provide some public comment? Okay, we'll start with Sarah, you right here. And if you would please come to a microphone so that people online could hear you. Yeah, that one's fine. And you just press the button to turn it green. And we do try to keep the public comments to 3 minutes to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to provide comment and keep the meeting on schedule. So thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay, and I have 4 copies of my comment for the record.
Yes, so you can hand that to somebody on our staff. Can you grab that, Robert? And we can upload that to the record.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Randy Coleman, and I'm the Vice President of the Clean Energy Coalition for Santa Fe County, or CEC. CEC exists to support the energy transition to renewable sources in a deliberate, informed, and most importantly, safe approach that results in a cleaner and safer energy economy for everyone in New Mexico. To that end, we oppose the sale of New Mexico Gas Company to Bernhard Capital Partners, BCP. But I'm not here to talk about a sale. I'm here to talk about a failure of due process. In this country and under the Commission's own rules, due process demands a meaningful opportunity to be heard. But you cannot have a meaningful hearing when the most vital evidence is hidden from scrutiny. The hearing examiners in this case have stripped the record of critical facts regarding BCP's history of failures, lawsuits, and performance issues. By excluding the expert testimony of Jesse George and preventing cross-examination on BCP's track record, the hearing examiners have not just managed the case, they violated the due process rights of every intervener and every ratepayer in this state. What is most disturbing is the role of our public servants have played in this. We expect the hearing examiner to be a neutral force, a neutral referee, an impartial finder of fact. In this docket, the hearing examiners have taken an adversarial role against the public. Instead of asking the tough questions, they're acting as proponents for the applicant, shielding a billion-dollar private equity firm from legitimate inquiry. When a regulator fights to keep evidence out of the record, they stop being a decision maker and start being a defense attorney for the utility. How can you, as commissioners, perform your statutory duty to verify the qualifications of a buyer when your own staff has sanitized the files before it even reaches your desk? You're being asked to sign off on a deal based on a fiction, a curated, sanitized version of the truth, where BCP's past does not exist. That is not regulation, that's negligence. We ask you to order BCP to provide testimony of the record that was stripped by the hearing examiners to be part of the record evidence in the case, because without this information, the case is woefully incomplete. Let the sunlight in. Do not force us to rely on a process where the referees are wearing the other team's jerseys. Thank you.
Okay, can we, yes, ma'am, if you wouldn't mind coming up to the mic for the next public comment. Thank you. Thank you for your
I'll leave
comment.
it on for you.
I also have some copies for the commissioners. Thank you for allowing public comment here. My name is Patricia Brown. I'm a clinical and public health psychologist. I've been working in New Mexico, living in Santa Fe County for 51 years, over 51 years. I'm also a member of the New Mexico Energy Policy Research Advisory. It's a group of scientists and engineers, and we're looking at energy policy, evaluating technical and public issues. My statement is this: the Public Regulation Commission's constitutional duty, quote, to investigate and regulate, quote, New Mexico's public utilities was effectively subordinated when the hearing examiners barred from the record the history of fines, violations, audits, investigations, and settlements associated with Bernhard Capital Partners and its affiliates. This information is not peripheral, it is foundational. Excluding testimony about BCP's compliance track record, whether presented through answers to interrogatories, The sworn testimony of Jesse George or through additional investigation requested by parties hobbles the commission's ability to protect the public interest. A regulator that is denied the facts is a regulator deprived of its authority. New Mexico law and the commission's own longstanding precedent require the PRC, the only constitutionally created utility regulating agency in this state, to carefully verify the qualifications of the proposed new owner of a utility. There is no exception. The commission cannot fulfill that mandate without examining the experience, conduct, and historical management practices of the acquirer. When a private equity firm with limited utility experience seeks to purchase a monopoly gas utility, the very first question any responsible regulator must ask is, what does their resume tell us about how they manage essential public services? Yet the hearing examiners have prevented this evidence from seeing the light of day. And what is even more troubling is that the PRC itself is not demanding this information. The commission should be leading this inquiry, not resisting it. The allegations regarding PCP's founder and current executives' past disaster response contracts are serious. The Shaw Group, BCP's predecessor, has been accused of overbilling state or federal governments in the wake of Hurricane Katrina or the BP oil spill, two of the most vulnerable moments in U.S. history. I might add that my son and his family live in New Orleans since 2005. That conduct is not merely a, quote, business dispute. It is indicative of poor management, inadequate performance, and potentially even fraud. Public dollars were at stake. Lives and communities were at stake. This is directly relevant to whether the firm can be trusted to operate New Mexico's gas system safely, prudently, and honestly. We have not seen the full audits from Louisiana or the federal government, but the existence of these allegations alone demands investigation. If the audits exonerate the Shaw Group or any other BCP-affiliated companies, that strengthens their case. But if the audits reveal issues of concern, the commission must know. More importantly, the public has a right to know. This is not optional in a democracy. Transparency is not an inconvenience. It is a constitutional requirement. Without the compliance history, the PRC cannot assess risk, full stop. The commission cannot evaluate the likelihood of future violations, the adequacy of proposed protections, or the credibility of the new owner's promises. It cannot determine whether the transaction is consistent with the public interest. It cannot meet its legal duties. For these reasons, I respectfully request the commission order the production of all compliance records, including histories of violations, settlements, audits, fines, and penalties related to BCP-owned and BCP-operated companies. The commission must restore the integrity of this proceeding, reassert its statutory and constitutional authority, and ensure that the people of New Mexico receive the full, honest review they are entitled to. Thank you.
Yeah, please come up, sir. Thank you.
There we go. Good morning, commissioners. Clem Weichel, Third Act, New Mexico. When you get right down to it, this Public Regulation Commission owes its very existence to a flaw in capitalism. Capitalism only works if the power of monopolies is held at bay. This holiday week, I'm grateful for this PRC and the utility commissions around the country because you all protect us from monopoly price gouging. Without regulation, consumer energy expenses would be crushing. And frankly, for many people, energy costs are already unaffordable. Commissioners, we're in a new phase of capitalist market power. Private equity funds were created and have grown exponentially because they avoid financial regulation. Equity managers on Wall Street went private because regulation limits how much risk they can take on, and they wanted to make riskier investments. Amassing market power, avoiding regulation, and taking on more risk is in the DNA of the private equity industry. When it comes to market power, the private equity industry is the apex predator in our capitalist financial system. The risky billionaire playbook of move fast and break things is not compatible with public services. Private equity firms consistently invent new financial schemes for boosting profits and increasing the resale value of their assets. And boy, do they resell them. The risky bill, it's not yet clear how that playbook will play out for monopoly utilities. This is kind of new, but you can bet it will include tried and true moves like leveraged debt refinancing, real estate leasebacks, self-dealing supply chains, as well as steep cuts to operations and maintenance. Over 100 lives were lost in California forest fires after steep cuts in utility maintenance at a California utility. That budget was supposed to pay for clearing trees away from power lines. When evaluating utility transactions, you're bound to consider future quality of service and compliance with regulations. How can you evaluate a future owner's quality of service and compliance without looking at their past performance? Yet Bernard Capital Partners has refused to answer basic questions about its history of operations, penalties, and compliance violations at the companies it owns. The commission has a duty to investigate and regulate, but it sure looks to me like BCP is obstructing the commission's investigation power. This refusal in itself is a history of non-compliance. BCP's lack of transparency, even before its transaction is approved, is appalling. It's a future sign of battles to keep its risk-taking and creative finances away from this commission's eyes. It appears that the primary goals of BCP are to extract capital and increase risk at our gas utility. It is not in the public interest to allow this secretive corporation to operate a monopoly in our state. Please deny their request to buy New Mexico Gas Company. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir, please come on up.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Daniel Pritchard, and I live in Taos. I've been a customer of New Mexico Gas Company for 50 years. I am on the executive board of Renewable Taos, a nonprofit organization supporting energy efficiency and economic development in northern New Mexico. I'm representing our members today at this meeting. My comments are regarding the proposed acquisition of New Mexico Gas Company by a private equity company, a risky proposition for us customers of New Mexico Gas Company. It is true that the commission is required to carefully verify the qualifications of the proposed new owner of a utility. The commission must require evidence of BCP's history and operations at BCP-owned companies and allow that evidence to be entered into the record, including history of violations, settlements, audits, fines, and penalties of BCP affiliate companies. It is absolutely relevant. If BCP's record is clean, that's great. If there are issues, it is the commission's duty to acquire and consider this information. And we customers, 550,000 strong, have a right to know. Thank you for listening to my comments this morning.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I'm Senator Harold Pope Jr., District 23, Northwest Albuquerque, Bernalillo County. At the heart of the Public Utility Act is a simple truth. We cannot protect the public interest without full transparency. New Mexicans deserve a fair and accurate assessment of any proposed utility owner, an evaluation rooted not in promises, but in verified facts. That is impossible when critical information is hidden from view. Right now, essential evidence about Bernhard Capital Partners' regulatory compliance history, including violations, fines, audits, and settlements involving their affiliate or formerly owned companies, has been withheld from the record. You cannot reliably weigh benefits against risks when the most relevant facts are kept from the public. The Commission has already been clear on this point. In the Avangrid PNM merger case, you wrote, "The joint applicant's failure to disclose this information is troubling and is also relevant to the credibility of the witnesses' testimony and the transparency by which Avangrid and PNM would conduct their business in New Mexico." The same reasoning would apply here, but with greater urgency, because BCP has far less utility experience than Avangrid. If Avangrid's lack of disclosure was troubling, then blocking the PRC from reviewing BCP's entire compliance history is not just troubling, it's unacceptable. Even more concerning is an op-ed that just ran in the Santa Fe New Mexican this weekend. It claims that the New Mexico Gas Company acquisition is being funneled through a shell subsidiary, Saturn Holdco, a special purpose vehicle with no independent operational record, no meaningful accountability to New Mexico, and a business address listed in Madrid, Spain. Without further information and confirmation, the PRC cannot determine whether the promised benefits to ratepayers outweigh the risks, whether service quality will suffer under new ownership, whether the details in the op-ed are true or false, or whether BCP is operationally competent and financially capable of meeting its obligations. These are not theoretical questions. They go directly to the reliability of service, ratepayer protection, and the safety of New Mexico families. And as the op-ed rightfully notes, under this arrangement, the profits leave New Mexico, but the economic and environmental risks stay here, squarely on the shoulders of communities. Even with the limited information available, we already know BCP's only regulated utility, National Water Infrastructure, experienced serious operational failures years into BCP's ownership. That alone raises red flags. But the greater concern is the systematic blocking of the very evidence needed to assess the truth. Let's be clear, this tilts the playing field away from the public and toward a private equity applicant with a troubled and undisclosed record. That is not fairness, that is not transparency, and is not what New Mexicans deserve. This is more than a regulatory concern. It is a moral responsibility. A just society protects those with least power. Regulation of monopoly utilities is one of the most important ways a state ensures economic justice. Natural gas service isn't just a commodity. It is heat in the winter, stability for working families, and protection for our elders. To regulate with integrity means demanding the full truth before placing a monopoly utility in private hands. It means ensuring ratepayers, especially low-income householders, elders, and rural communities, are not harmed because critical evidence was withheld. That is why I respectfully urge the Commission to require BCP to disclose all settlements, audits, fines, violations, and regulatory compliance issues from the last 15 years. The public has a right to know who is seeking control of a life-essential service. The PRC cannot safeguard New Mexicans without a complete factual record. It cannot uphold its statutory or constitutional duties without the truth. And it cannot protect ratepayers unless transparency is treated not as an option, but as a mandatory condition for doing business with the people of New Mexico. I ask you to issue an order requiring full disclosure of the full history of violations and settlements of BCP-owned companies in case 24-00266-UT, so that this Commission and also the public can make a decision grounded in facts, not omissions. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you for your comment. Yes.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My name is Matthew McQueen. I'm a state representative for House District 50, and I chair the House Energy, Environment, Natural Resources Committee. Under 62-6-12 and 62-6-13, there's a 6-part test to approve an application such as the acquisition of New Mexico Gas Company. You're probably very familiar with that. The 6 parts are whether the transaction provides benefits to utility customers, whether the commission's jurisdiction will be preserved, whether the quality of service will be diminished, whether the transaction will result in improper subsidization of non-utility activities, verification of the qualifications and financial health of the new owner, and adequacy of the protections against harm. So that 5th item, verification of the qualifications and financial health of the new owner, was not developed at the hearing below. The matter should be sent back for a full record to be developed. And I would note that, in this proceeding, the burden is on the applicant. The lack of evidence of their qualifications would not allow approval. The applicant shouldn't object to this. There should be a robust discovery process, an adversarial proceeding to develop that record so it can be brought before you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have anybody else in person wishing to provide public comment? Patrick, do we have anybody online who would like to provide public comment?
Mr. Chair, we don't have anyone online for public comment at the moment.
Thank you for your comments and your engagement. So with that, we'll conclude the public comment session on our agenda, and we'll move to the next item, which is the Employee of the Month. And I believe Commissioner Nybert has the honor.
Mr. Chair, I do have that honor. The Employee of the Month, and I have to apologize, we don't have the belt, and we need to put out an all points bulletin to secure the belt. It is missing. So the Employee of the Month will not be able to have the belt immediately, but hopefully by December 1st, they will. This person has served the commission for over 10 years. For those of you that are familiar with the commission, that probably narrows it down a little bit. And because of his long service, which further narrows it down, is an invaluable source of knowledge about agency procedure, dockets, and history. During the commission's recent period of growth and evolution, this person has not only combined his adaptable skills, but he has a willingness to learn with deep knowledge of commission history and practice, and allows us to do our job and have some of that access to information that's vital to what we do here. This person handles a large caseload, so that narrows it further. And some of the most complicated matters that appear before the Office of General Counsel are given to this person. So most people in the room probably are beginning to recognize who it is. He's always willing and able to provide a helpful ear and guidance to both new and more seasoned attorneys alike. And he has an eclectic taste in music and movies and an uncommon sense of humor. So at this time, I would ask that Russell Fisk come up here and join the commission for a photo op, because we don't have a belt to give him. So come on up, Russell. Congratulations. Come up here. Thank you. We'll find that belt. Okay.
Well, thank you for that great presentation. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of prior meeting minutes. And I will note that so we have 2 minutes, one for a regular open meeting on October 30 and one for a special open meeting on November 6. On the November 6th special open meeting minutes, I had a few minor edits to correct some section numbers. And then on the October 30 minutes, I also had one suggestion to include with respect to SPS's CCN case. This is a 25 docket 2566 UT. Just some further clarification on the result of us asking the parties to go back and try to figure out some parameters around the dates, and they came back and presented. So I included some red line language in the minutes to reflect that. Commissioners, I don't know if you had a chance to look at that, or do you have any other suggested edits?
I don't have any other edits, but on the matter you were just talking about, I agree with your changes. I would also strike after the word 3 p.m., the words with an agreement or not an agreement. That's not necessary. So they were to report back to us, and then if they didn't have an agreement, then we go on with the minutes, but they can strike that language in addition to your addition that you made.
Okay, so I think I understand that edit. So we'll go ahead and make that edit as well. Anything further? Okay, so then I will move to adopt the meeting minutes, both sets of meeting minutes, as will be revised consistent with this discussion.
Second.
We'll take a vote on that.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilera,
Yes.
Commissioner Nyberg.
Yes.
The motion to adopt the October 30th regular open meeting minutes and the November 6th special open meeting minutes as edited passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next item is consent action. So we have 4 different items before us today. Commissioners, is there any discussion on any of these items?
I move to adopt the proposals on the consent action item.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second, so we'll vote.
Commissioner Nyberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilera,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connell.
Yes.
Motion to approve the items on the consent agenda passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. For regular action items, we have 2 items today. The first one will be presented by Mr. Robert Lundeen, and it is docket number 2511 UT. The floor is yours.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. So today I have an order to present to you in the formal complaint of Mark Harding and Barbara Shockley against Tiburon Water and Sanitation District. The order I've prepared for you would be an order to show cause, or in the alternative, allow for corrective actions to resolve the complaint. This formal complaint is kind of a 4-parter comprised of 3 different claims related to respondents' billing practices, and additionally, an independent commission inquiry that was made. So claim 1 relates to Tiburon's bill estimation practices. Claim 2 relates to Tiburon's incremental billing practices. And claim 3 relates to Tiburon's proportionate billing practices. And lastly, the commission's inquiry relates to Tiburon's bill adjustment practices. Now, there are lots of facts in the record, and I'm happy to answer any questions to clarify them. But that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Well, Commissioners, I actually maybe was gonna ask Mr. Lundin if he could go through what the proposed order does, but alternatively, if either of you wants to kick us off, we can go that route.
This case, and I know that Mr. Lundin wrestled with this for quite a while. And, you know, I guess it's an unfortunate set of circumstances that lead us to this this point in time. And it's interesting. And the language that we see on paper, in my mind, doesn't get translated very well into the actual calculation. You read the language on the paper and you can come up with 3 or 4 different ways to do the math. And because of that, I'm not very in favor of providing a fine. And so for me, taking the language regarding a penalty or fine out would be my preference. As far as what we should do, it does seem to me that the water utility should, I guess in my view, use its historic practices of calculating what the charges should have been. But after doing that, it should make it very clear, not only with this commission, but with its customers in well-written language, how their bill is going to be calculated. Because the language that's used does not get you to the point that their practice gets you to. And because the petitioner was involved with the utility for a time, and these historic practices were there under his watch as well, I don't see how we can penalize the new folks that are just carrying out what maybe he did as well. So for me, the easiest way to deal with it is just use the historic practices to set whatever adjustment needs to be made, have them make that adjustment. But then they need to seriously look at how they calculate people's bill. I think Mr. Lundin indicated that they probably ought to just have per gallon charge because that's what they're doing. But it's not clear in the written materials that that's how you should calculate the bills that are going on. So that's kind of my brief overview of the case, and the one thing that was in there that I, because of the unique nature of it, I wouldn't impose a fine or penalty in this case. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, yeah, I certainly agree with the ambiguity that is provided by the rate, and it's not helpful in determining how it should have been calculated. I think what we do have is in the record how the commission, I think, thought the rate was to be implemented. Although that may also not be entirely clear. But I certainly, when we approved this rate, I remember having a certain understanding of how the rate should be calculated. Unfortunately, this is written very vaguely, and we were, with my advisor and counsel, talking about 3 options of how the rate could be calculated, and since then I've seen a 4th option. So I agree with you that there are 3 or 4 ways of interpreting the rate. So with respect to the penalty, I'm not opposed to the show cause order that would determine whether a penalty should be issued. And I'm certainly open to Commissioner Nybert's proposal here to not impose one. I think that depending on how far back you go into the history of how Tiburon has been charging rates, you could come to different conclusions. And so this certainly is not an easy case. I'll see what Commissioner O'Connell has to say, but I think we could end up, there are different reasonable outcomes that we could end up with today on this order.
Yeah, thank you for that. We have a complaint in front of us and we have to deal with it. I'm having a hard time with seeing what action would create the change that needs to happen, right? Commissioner Aguilar and I have the history of a Tiburon rate case when we first started here. And that was the picture of a utility that's just barely limping along. The record in this complaint suggests they're still just barely limping along. And then just big picture, it's just kind of weird. I mean, we've got a guy that used to work at the utility who's making the complaint. He lives in the community. He needs the utility to work. And then, yeah, absolutely agree. An outcome of this complaint needs to be clarity on how you calculate the bill. That's obvious. But the net of over 9 months of the different ways you can calculate these bill is $18. So how is a guy who used to work there, lives there, needs the utility to work, coming here in a place where unpredictable things might happen over $18? So it really gets, for me, this, how do we get to where folks are working out this public service that everybody in the community needs in a reasonable way without just coming here to, settle disputes or something like that. It's just odd. So I think because of my experience with Tiburon before, there just aren't very many people there. So pushing them hard doesn't do much. They're just, so in terms of resolving the complaints that's in front of us, I can see both, notice to show cause that would at least cause them to respond. The value of that is we need this rate to be clarified. But bigger picture, I think we need to start thinking about receivership, because this utility is not functioning. And so what really has to happen to create the service that this utility needs? I mean, I don't think that's really in the bounds of what we're doing today with this complaint, but how many more Tiburon issues do we need to see before we put the pieces together and say we need a bigger solution than a fine, or a different solution than a fine? And if they're not going to if the community won't create the solution themselves, which would be my preference, then we might need to take all of what's going on down there as a sign for time to regulate more assertively. So I don't know which of you two I'm agreeing with on that one.
Commissioner O'Connell, you mentioned it's an $18 case, and I would say it's $18 if you calculate it one way. I think when I sat down with Robert and my reading of it, actually it was $16 the other way or $12 the other way. So, and that opens up another can of worms because that would be, they didn't bill what they should have. So it depends on how you want to calculate based on the language in the schedule that got sent out. And it's up to various interpretations. If you just look at the language, which I think I did, and came up with a way that took it the other direction. So it is a case, and you aptly pointed out that some strange things happen when you appear before courts or when you appear before commissions like this that have to make decisions. But I agree with you on the point that I think these water utilities, we as a commission are going to have to take we're going to have to scrutinize them more keenly to make sure that they're viable organizations, that they're charging appropriate rates to take care of maintenance and repairs, and that they don't get into the situations that we've experienced the last several months. And I say we've experienced, that their customers have really experienced it. We've just been alerted to facts and are trying to deal with resolving those issues that have come up. But I suspect that there are a number of small water utilities around the state that find themselves in similar situations. I think we expressed that a few meetings ago. So, we do need to resolve the complaint. And again, probably the easiest and the most equitable thing would be to have them recalculate this customer's rate based upon their historical way of calculating their bills. One other point in the order that I didn't quite understand, Mr. Ledeen, is it says something to the effect of you can't do handwritten notations on the bill. And I'm wondering, how does the office correct obvious mistakes that it would see on a bill? If we're not going to allow a handwritten correction, do they just have to generate a new computerized bill or something? Is that what you're suggesting? Or how? I didn't quite understand why that was an important aspect.
Thank you for the question, Commissioner. So I included that in there as an important aspect because the December 4th bill for the November billing period with the handwritten notation was kind of the part of the cause for some of the complaint, right? So it was in the handwritten notation that a lot of these issues arose. So to tell them no more handwritten notations, I think helps Timbron to improve professional ability. As far as how they accomplish that, I assume they would just regenerate the bill with their billing software, and it would print out with the correct information instead of a bill with incorrect information and Sharpie marks on it to correct it.
I guess I could see that with large utilities, but some small place, I can see somebody going in and saying, hey, you miscalculated it. Can you change it? And they change it, initial it or whatever, and they pay whatever's owed. I didn't see that as being a important requirement that the commission should really prohibit that practice, because what we want are accurate bills to be sent to the customers. And if there's a mistake, we need those mistakes clarified, hopefully, as soon as possible. So to me, it didn't matter whether somebody hand wrote the correct numbers or whether they had to go through the computer system. Maybe they have an outside vendor or something that generates those bills, and it cost them some money. And some of these small entities may want to avoid those costs, but I don't know the facts. I just saw that as being something that struck me as maybe overreaching on our part.
So just quickly on that one, I think that if I received a bill with, crossed out numbers and handwritten, I would be scratching my head a little bit about what is going on. And so I do agree, this isn't the smallest water company of, 30 or 70 customers. I don't think they have quite 1,000, but they're not far from that. And So to that point, that one seemed fine to me. I guess I wanted to clarify, we don't have an alternate order here, right?
Chairman, that's correct. At least I never, an alternate order was discussed, but I don't think I ever received a authorization to share it.
In the absence of that, I think one thing that we can do is issue this order without a penalty amount and just say that the commission may impose a penalty if we go through that show cause. And you know, that's just one potential path forward. Certainly open to hearing if there's anything else.
Yeah, I just want to say, I agree that we need, because this, water service is commissioner land. When you go to water committee meetings, they'll point out that of all the commodities we regulate, this is the only one you ingest. So it's really important to get water utilities to step up to the mark. So to me, just forcing them to be professional in billing is a very minor thing. So I agree with Commissioner Aguilera there. I didn't work on an alternate order because, again, my concern is whatever we do here doesn't solve the problem. So I'm okay with your suggestion, Commissioner Aguilera. And then really for me, the whole thing is just conversation of this meeting and then going forward. I know we've got process going on among staff and our compliance division to be looking at water utilities. I mean, really the takeaway from the rate case we did was they weren't asking to raise their rates enough. And then we still have 85% loss rate. So they're almost generating 2 gallons of water for every 1 gallon of water billed. So they're still in this mode of just fixing leaks when there's a hole in the street, right? They don't even know what's leaking and not surfacing, right? And they can't get out of that cycle of doom without a massive reboot on that utility. So I think let's rule on this complaint today. I appreciate you offering let's, just switch to a no amount penalty. But for me, the third time will be 3 strikes and you're out. And I'm going to be looking at something like receivership.
Mr. Lunding, does that provide enough guidance? Does that make sense?
Chairman, it makes sense if I'm thinking of it as removing those 2 sections of the order, which wouldn't impose a penalty, but would say this is a penalty that the commission might consider. So removing those sections and then moving forward with the order as is, that would be possible. The one issue there is that the order does include an interpretation of rate 1 that I'm not sure all the commissioners are on board with. So I think that wrinkle should be ironed out as well.
Yeah, that was something that I came into the meeting with a question on too, is again, the one thing clearly needs to happen is a instruction commitment to how to bill that rate. I think using historic practice logically makes sense. If they're doing that right now, then why is this guy complaining? Because he was in charge of the historic practice, right? So I think, I inferred that they changed their historic practice and he didn't like that they did that. But is that specific enough? To say, hey, you need to revert to historic practice. You need to produce a sample calculation that shows how the math works. And then where does it go? Does it come to our staff to verify? I mean, those are the kind of things that aren't really in here.
Yeah. Is rate 1 the historic practice, or is it modified?
So commissioners, the way that Tiburon is billing rate one is, according to them, consistent with the way they've done it since at least 2013. Now that's the only kind of fact we have on how they've historically been doing the rate. The complainant claims to have no knowledge of the way that they implemented that proportionate practice. And, you know, he's saying that element of how they're doing the rate is something that the board never voted on and that the customers never considered. So that is an issue, a fact that would hopefully be resolved in show cause proceedings. But the way that Tiburon is currently implementing the rate, according to them, is their historic practice. But like we said, there's multiple ways to interpret the rate. The way they do it is the kind of the middle ground option, which is the proportionate. It amounts to roughly a per gallon rate. The rate could be interpreted as rounding down. It could be interpreted as rounding up. Whatever the commission lands on, I think has an impact on what the order looks like and potential outcomes. If the rate rounds down, then that generally implies that the complainant and other customers are being overbilled. If the rate rounds up, it's the inverse. It's that complainant and customers are generally underbilled.
So when I went through the exercise, it seemed to me that if we just use the language that has been put forth, sent to their customers, that it creates a lot more problems. And so confirming, allowing them to correct this customer's bill based on historic practices makes sense because it doesn't create additional problems. Moving forward, they need to really wrestle with how they communicate with their customers on how the bills are going to be calculated, because the language that they currently have does not get you on a piece of paper putting a mathematical formula together, does not get you where I think they want to go. And so to me, the most equitable way to deal with it would be to have them implement, go back, look at this customer's bill, use their historic way of calculating. And if he wants to complain, then he can come back and we can do the other method where he owes him some money and create a big beehive. Because if he is being underbilled, then so is everybody else. And that's what if you look at the piece of paper, that's where you land under one interpretation anyway. So, you know, I would hope there would not be pushback to try to correct that. Moving forward, they have to do some things. They really need to communicate with their customers. They need to communicate with this commission on setting or illuminating how they're calculating the bills, and we may even need to approve that. But we need to make sure that what goes out to the customers is clear and that there's only one way to get to the math based on the statement. Can't have four different ways to calculate something. It'll always lead to conflict. So we need to, you know, that can be done in due course after this complaint is handled. But if rate one is the current procedures, I'm good with rate one. If it's not, then I would argue we ought to do however they historically have done it.
Yeah, it's funny because I think it just depends on the reader because I feel like you can read this and be very confident in understanding what it means, but somebody else can do the same thing and understand it differently. I think one thing that helps, obviously there's what rate wasn't filed and what should that they have been charging. And that's one question. A separate question, if we want to go there, is whether the rate they have been charging is reasonable. Arguably, the way that they have been charging is the more precise way. If you think about a unit as a gallon of water, if you think about a unit as 1,000 gallons, then you end up on a different result. But I think arguably the way that they've been charging is the more precise way to charge. Again, whether that was what they were supposed to be doing or not, just based on the actual rate that was approved, is a different question. And so I'm not really sure where this conversation leaves us. I think what Mr. Lundin was mentioning is that somewhere around paragraph 27 and 28, we include an interpretation of what the charge should have been, or maybe it's a little further than that. I think 27 and 28 deduced how the rate was actually charged as a handwritten note. And then beyond that, we explain how the rate should have been charged.
Yeah, so if you're looking at the order, then I believe paragraph 54 is the main paragraph that discusses the commission's interpretation of rate one. I do want to note that if the commission, so let me rephrase that. The way that Tiburon is implementing rate one, there would need to be, I guess there's no billing discrepancy between the customer's bills and the way that Tiburon proportionally implements rate one, if that's how the commission lands on it. The only discrepancy there would be in the bill adjustment on the month of the December billing month. Sorry, I don't have the exact date. That is where the respondent refunded 340 gallons of usage to the customer. We went through the math. We figured out what a credit might be for 340 gallons. The one that the customer got perhaps does not match that. And then in discussing with Commissioner Nybert, there was also multiple ways that you could potentially look at that adjustment practice too. So if you go with kind of Tiburon's way of doing rate one, there's still a bill discrepancy in that one adjustment month, ranging from 50 cents to a few dollars based on how you calculate it.
So how would the order be able to stand then if we delete some of that discussion? And so paragraph 54, for example.
Chairman, there would be some knock-on effects. So paragraph 54 is important for the alternative resolution, which I think the crux of allowing Tiburon to resolve this complaint via corrective actions is to refile their advice notice. So if Tiburon's going to refile the advice notice, then they definitely need guidance on what it should look like when they refile it.
Given that it seems that there are a lot of cascading effects from these changes, it seems difficult to modify the order right here today and rule on it. I don't love to push these items back, but I'm wondering if it would be better to, having this discussion, if it would be better to go back and redraft portions of the order.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. For sure, I think the commission should coalesce on a way to read rate one and how it should be implemented before the order goes out.
Yeah, one of the reasons use historic practice appeals to me is it feels like if we go with the recent practice, then that's a rate increase that wasn't noticed. And then again, totally, their rates are too low. So we're nibbling around at the edges for a problem that's much bigger than this complaint. Either way we go.
And are we all under the same understanding about what historic practice means in this case? Because, I think if we accept the explanation in the record that they've been doing the proportional type billing since 2013, that seems like it's long enough that it should be considered historical practice to me.
Yeah, I would agree.
As I understood, talking to Mr. Lundin, the historic practice, which is totally different than how I read it, but on paragraph 54, the customer gets charged $74.59 per month just to be a customer. If they use 1 gallon, then they'll be charged 1/1000 times $4.61. If they use 2 gallons, they'll be charged 2 gallons or 2/1000 times $4.61. They go through that calculation for every gallon during that first tier. Then you move to the second tier and you do the same math. I would suggest that paragraph 54 probably needs to illuminate that a little better, because we say we provide full clarity, and I would argue we didn't quite capture the math on that. But anyway, that's my understanding, and tell me if I'm wrong, but that's my understanding of what they have historically billed since 2013.
Commissioner, you're correct about the historic billing. Paragraph 54, however, it takes the position of the rounding down as the correct interpretation. So that's one of the 3 kind of ways that we discussed it. And that's just the way that I had proposed it, kind of relying on the implicit words per 1,000 gallons led me to this conclusion. But like I said, there's multiple ways to read the rate. So this paragraph would need to change if the commissioners disagreed with the rounding down scenario.
Yeah, and I agree with your interpretation about how they have been calculating the rate. And that's what I was referring to as the proportional, which is also arguably the more precise way to charge.
Yeah, that was my understanding too. So if we want to say historic, then we're picking the proportional lane, and I think you're concerned if we just included some illustrative calculations that would expand 54 and I think add the clarity that you're seeking. So it sounds like we're in the range of proceeding without a penalty, corrective actions, and landing on the side of the proportional bill, which we understand to be historic practice. Is that what you needed, Robert?
Commissioners, if that's the interpretation the commission is taking, then I will note that claim number 3 gets resolved in favor of the respondent, so it would be dismissed. Yes, so to recap, under the proposal, claim 2 would be dismissed. As we just discussed, claim 3 might be dismissed. That leaves claim 1 and the commission's inquiry still on the table. Claim 1 relates to the force majeure determination and the bill estimation, and the commission's inquiry is the bill adjustment.
And I think the reason why that makes sense, if we're thinking about notice to customers, I mean, it's kind of a weird way to get to it, but they've had notice since 2013 that that's how the rate would be charged. On the other hand, we did approve a rate case that, well, I guess it's this language here. There is evidence in the record that suggests that they were going to charge the rate per 1,000 gallons, although it didn't make it into the actual rate. But in testimony, that was the understanding. So it's a little bit tricky, but I think we can support that. Customers knew how the rate was to be charged since at least 2013.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. So taking that as true, it wasn't disputed by the complainant. So let's say the proportionate practice has been in place since at least 2013. That's the only fact we have about the existence of the proportionate practice. As far as customer notice, I mean, the customers would have been receiving bills with that practice implemented, but I don't see anywhere in the record where that was explained to the customers or provided in a tariff filing or a testimony. So as far as notice, I don't know if they have a notice or not, based on just receiving the bills.
Well, they received notice of the rates that would be charged after this commission approved the tariff, right? So they have that. It's been historically applied, maybe differently than I would apply it, but it's been applied. And the only complaint we have is this one complaint. So let's get this matter resolved. And like I said, moving forward, I think a lot of work needs to be done. And probably them coming back to us to approve their methodology that is then going to be noticed to all the customers and hopefully in clear language, allow them to know how their bill is generated without having the ability to figure out it could be 4 different ways. So I think we're on a good course of action if we do it that way. And, you know, what I discussed with you would have, as you said, would have really kicked the hornet's nest, you know. It would have created all sorts of problems. And we need to resolve problems, not create new ones unless we have to. So that's why I think this proportionate language, I don't see it there, but that's how they've done it. And we have one complaint before us and probably only one complaint ever dealing with this issue. So I'd say let's get this handled and then we can deal with the other issues as they come before us.
Yeah, I mean, to me, what Commissioner Nybert said summarizes where we're at. So, and I think I understand it. I would say, and I agree with Commissioner Aguilera, it'll be hard to rewrite this thing right now.
Okay, so I think in that case, we don't need a motion and maybe we just need to go back and rewrite based on this conversation.
Yeah, Chairman, let me just recap what I think so on claim 1 and the commission's inquiry, I haven't heard any instructions to change anything other than to remove the potential penalty language. Claim 2 would stay the same. And then claim 3 is where you'd have significant revisions for the commission's interpretation of rate 1 and how that resolves that claim. Am I understanding the guidance correctly?
I think so.
There's my.
Yes. It'll be clear when we see the order. Okay, well, thank you. And also, thank you for the recommendation that you gave here. This is a tricky one. I definitely understand where your recommendation is coming from. And I believe that it's supportable, even if we're landing on something different here. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll second that. You're trying to navigate a very confusing, hard space. And again, the frustration is, okay, whatever we do here doesn't fix the existential problem. So, thank you.
Okay, so we have one last regular action item. And that is docket number 2538 UT, and we have Mr. Kevin Gedgo to present.
Good morning, Commissioners. Before you is the matter of the application for approval of El Paso Electric Company's Renewable Energy Act Plan for 2026 and ninth revised rate number 38, the RPS cost rider. The Commission issued a final order in this matter on October 17th, 2025, and that order denied EPE's 2026 REA plan due to the unknown costs of the Santa Teresa project. And it ordered EPE to file a revised 2026 REA plan as soon as possible to comply with the renewable portfolio standards. Those unknown costs were a result of a notice of communication filed by EPE into the docket after the conclusion of the public hearing and briefing, in which the Commission was notified of a letter that the developer, D.E. Shaw Renewable Investments, DESRI, had sent to EPE, in which it notified EPE of possible cost changes due to government tariffs. Subsequently, on November 17th, EPE filed a motion for rehearing in which it informed the Commission that EPE and DESRI had reached a commercial resolution that would maintain the Santa Teresa project costs at the same amount as the costs in EPE's original application. EPE requested that the Commission approve EPE's 2026 REA plan as originally filed, as well as retract certain findings that the Commission had made regarding the communication between DESRI and EPE and its effect on the Santa Teresa contracts. Staff, Doña Ana County, joined by Stephen Fishman, and CCAE each filed responses to the motion for rehearing. All respondents support approval of the 2026 REA plan with the solidified price of the Santa Teresa project. But Doña Ana County, joined by Stephen Fishman, note that the Commission's rules for rehearing require the opportunity for cross-examination if new evidence is introduced that pertains to the modification of the final order. Additionally, CCAE notably requests that the updated agreement between DESRI and EPE be filed into the docket. The order before you recognizes the merit of the responses and orders the parties to either file an uncontested stipulation that stipulates the entry of the new evidence into the docket and waives cross-examination, or alternatively, file an explanation for why an uncontested stipulation could not be reached with respect to the new evidence, along with a suggested procedure for handling such a situation if it arises. Hence, the order partially grants EPE's motion for rehearing in that it grants rehearing and vacates the final order, but does not at this time approve EPE's 2026 REA plan. Such approval would be considered after the introduction of new evidence for the purposes of a final order. With that, I stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Gedko, I appreciate your work on this. And the one thing that came into my mind was it seems that there's a need to handle this quickly. And I asked you earlier if we could have just had the parties appear before us today and get this thing over with. And due to procedural limitations, that's not possible. So I think the message needs to be sent out to the respondents and to EPE to please do it sooner than get the stipulation to us sooner than December 5th. So this thing can be heard by us in December. And so hopefully we can get that done. And so I just encourage the respondents and EPE to get that stipulation, uncontested stipulation to us as soon as possible. And if you can't get the uncontested stipulation, then I guess we'll have to go through our procedures. I would note, Mr. Gedko, on paragraph G, page 11, commission's capitalized in all the other paragraphs except in the third line of G. So you might want to capitalize that. That's my comments.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that was exactly in line with just the question I was going to have is the way I read this procedurally, it puts the clock in the company's hands. Hopefully they could reach a uncontested stipulation quickly. That seems to be the most direct route to satisfying the need to bring this new evidence into the record. So is there anything that would prevent getting this done at the December 11th open meeting? Or, I mean, knowing that we have to notice an agenda 72 hours in advance, what's the real deadline for getting something filed? It's not the day before the open meeting, obviously.
With it, December 5th is, I want to look at what date that is on the calendar. So that would be the Friday before. And so we would be able to notice that by 10 a.m. the following Monday, and we would be able to handle it at the December 11th open meeting by my quick calculation.
Okay, so December 5th is a good deadline to get it on the December 11th open meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We also have a meeting on December 18th.
Yeah.
It would probably help us out if the parties got that to us sooner than the 5th, because Jordan would probably appreciate getting it on the agenda and having it all ready to go.
That would be wonderful. I just chose dates with a recognition of the holiday that's coming up this week, and knowing the parties have a lot of other obligations. So.
Well, it sounds like the only change to this order is making a little c a big C, and potentially looking at the date, or it's staying as is. Okay.
My quick calculation, I will do a double check, but my quick calculation here off the top of my head is if that December 5th is a Friday, if somebody doesn't contradict me on that, then I'm perfectly comfortable with by 10 a.m. communicating with the individual that issues the agenda to get that on the 11th.
Okay. So only making a little c a big C. So thank you so much, Mr. Gedko, for a really well-written order, and for also just continually keeping us apprised of any updates with this proceeding. And so really appreciate your work here. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the order partially granting motion for rehearing in docket number 25-00038-UT with the one typographical change.
I'll second. A motion and a second, so we'll take a vote.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilar,
Yes.
Commissioner Nyberg.
Yes.
The motion to approve the order with the minor edit in 2538 UT passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so last section, close to one of the last sections on the agenda, we have discussion and potential action. And so we have a resolution that Mr. Cameron will briefly explain.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you can see, this is an update to a resolution that we did last year around this time, actually in October, to make some changes to who is the designee for the commission when we are filing rules with the State Record Center. The State Record Center rules on rulemaking require that either the issuing authority or their authorized designee are the ones who send rules over. My understanding is that they are very strict in who they will accept the rules from. So this just basically makes it easier to handle our rulemaking responsibilities, of which I'm sure you will agree there are many. So this just updates basically the roster of the Office of General Counsel in order to allow everybody to be able to be that designee.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, so then I will move to approve the resolution as has been presented to us.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second.
2 seconds.
2 seconds.
2 seconds. Commissioner Nyberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilera?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connell?
Yes.
The motion to approve resolution 112525 passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So next we have communications with Chief of Staff.
Good morning, commissioners. I sound like a broken record, so I will just go through these pretty quickly. We have a lot happening coming up in December. We kick off December the 1st and 2nd with a seminar, as you already mentioned, Mr. Chair. Really excited about that. The agenda and the speaker bios are posted on our website. Last time I checked, we had nearly 90 people registered, maybe more than 90 people. Oh, I'm getting the higher than that. I haven't checked in a couple of days. So really excited about that. Looks like it's shaping up to be another valuable time together to talk about regulatory issues that are facing us all. Thank you to everybody who's helped in the planning phase. Thank you to commissioners for volunteering to take a panel, even though I maybe told you. Appreciate all of that. Next, we have our all hands meeting, which is scheduled for December 19th. On Friday, the 19th, we have a location that we are just moments away from confirming. So watch for that inside the PRC. We're excited to gather everyone, go over what we've achieved this past year, look forward into the next year, and just catch up, since this is the only time that the entire agency is in the same building at the same time. We're looking forward to that. Starting December 1st, the same time, some of us will be talking about regulatory principles. Our project management team for our e-docket replacement will be kicking off what's called user acceptance testing. You've heard me talking about this for a couple of, well, at least a month now, but it's where our experts, our subject matter experts, and some outside of the agency volunteers, including from our major utilities and from other entities that appear in front of us, will be coming in and trying out our new system. So it's an opportunity for people to get into the system and point and click and try new things and see how the processes are working. That runs every day through the 18th. Excuse me, we're not doing that on the 19th because we have other plans for the 19th. So it'll run from December 1st to December 18th, where we will take a 2-week break, and then it will pick up again on January 6th and run through the 16th. We are still on target to go live January 19th. It's very exciting. So the 16th, we tentatively looks like it'll be the last day for e-docket to be accessible on our website. And then on the 19th, when people come into work in the morning, we will have our new system up. Now, there's always things that can happen. Somebody's likened this process to building a house where you get change orders and there's a delay here or there. So stay tuned. I will keep you updated. But right now we are looking at going live January 19th. That's very exciting. It is eating the life of this agency. Many people's time are getting sucked into this, but I think it will be worth it. From the previews that we've seen, we're very excited. So I hope you are all also. I think that's all I have, as if that's not enough. So I'm happy to answer any other questions or talk about something I may have forgotten.
Well, thank you for the updates, and to all the staff who have been working on that and hopefully won't quit because of that. So I'm glad that it's almost over, and I wholeheartedly agree that it'll be worth it. So thank you for the efforts.
Wait. I was going to say pre-congratulate you for the first, because I was talking to Jennifer Baca before this meeting, and it sounds like registration we're closer to 150. So this is the 3rd year of it, and the program is impressive. From somebody who goes to a lot of conferences, this is a conference people would pay a lot of money for, and it's free. So congratulations on that. And then just follow up on that Tiburon discussion. I know you've got the compliance office looking at water utilities. Let's make sure we don't miss that one. And the big question for me that I would love to see from our staff is that some of these folks are apparently on the ropes enough that we shouldn't wait for them to come to us, right? That there might be things we need to be more proactive with. And then again, history of Tiburon, they're happy to be struggling was kind of what my takeaway is from all the cases we've seen. That's kind of dangerous from my point of view. So I'd love to hear staff's assessment of water utilities in general, and are there things we should be doing?
Commissioner, thank you for reminding me of that. The Small Water Utility Task Force, which is what we've called, or loosely called, whatever it is that we're doing, pulling multi-divisions together. I do believe that we will have something to talk about probably at the next open meeting. Our compliance auditor has pulled together an initial risk assessment, which should give us a sense of, oh my gosh, we need to do something tomorrow versus these can go down and wait until we can get to them. Because as you said, there are, my sense, I looked at a draft report this morning. There are companies that aren't coming to us, but so that we should go to them. So I do anticipate hearing about that soon.
Thank you for doing that. Yeah, that would be a great presentation to have at an open meeting. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, so next item, communications with commissioners. Anybody want to start? Anybody who's not me? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will not be at the workshop in early December because I will be attending the Energy Council meeting someplace in Mississippi. And then really appreciate all the education opportunities we've had, but I'm really looking forward to getting my CLE credits at the upcoming program that the PRC is sponsoring. And for the attorneys, you not only get general credits, you'll get ethics credits and the equity and justice credit as well, which is sometimes difficult to get. So it's quite a program that Choya and the staff has put together, and we appreciate that. Just like to wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving and safe travels if you're traveling. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was my note for communications too, was happy Thanksgiving. And then the engineers, our ethics requirement is more of a self-certification. So if it works for the lawyers, it works for us too. So encourage, if you're a professional engineer looking for PDHs, this is a nice low-cost way to do it. And you don't have to pay for the CLE registration. You get to self-report. So.
Great. I don't have to get any credits. I'm just coming for fun. So,
And talk.
and because I was voluntold to, so. And just as a reminder, I'll be going to the Northwestern Electricity Dialogue in Utah, and so that's, I guess, next week as well, on Thursday and Friday. So happy Thanksgiving. We are adjourned.